Welcome, everybody, to the next episode of Hardball Talks. My name is Brett Swip. I'm your host. And today we have a great friend of mine, one of the best coaches that I believe is in the game and has been in the game for a long time, and that's Bill Kurich from Webster University. Bill, maybe just a quick 30 seconds, who you are, where you've been, and what's going on in your life now.
Sir, head coach at Webster University. This is my 19th year. It goes fast, man. We started out when I got in the office. I looked to my right, and there was Brett Swip coaching the softball team, and we kind of got in there together. Before that, I was the assistant at St. Joseph's College in Rensselaer, Indiana, for 4 years, and started out at Concordia University, Chicago, as a graduate assistant for 3 years prior to that. So it goes fast. This is 26 years doing it. I can't believe it. But yeah, that's where we've been, and it's amazing. Still at Webster 19 years later.
Great. And Webster's a great program because of you and support of you, and you've been a fun journey to watch. Family, got kids. How old are the kids now?
Sent my first one off to college this year.
Okay.
A freshman playing volleyball. She's she's 18. She's up at Augustana College in the Quad Cities, and then we've got a 15-year-old sophomore daughter, and then an 8-year-old son. And daughter plays volleyball. Son plays soccer and baseball and golf. And no, we're running around like crazy. My wife and I have been married for 21 years now. So no, it's everything is going good. We're like I said, sending that first one off to college that's a moment right there, boy.
Yeah, that's a full circle moment right there.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, awesome. Bill, I've shared with you that I'm spending some time over these few episodes talking about hitting, and this kind of got sparked from in our organization. One of our trainers did a survey to our coaches over the summer and just asked about what's going well, what needs to get better. What are you seeing in your guys out on the field? And hitting was a hot topic. There was some really good high marks on physicality, swinging harder, hitting harder, so on and so forth. But then there also were some glaring areas that needed to improve. What the approach of our guys, the mindset, the IQ of the game, the IQ of the at-bat. So I'm spending some time here just bringing on guests that I believe have been in the trenches with hitters for a long time, and just leaning into your experience and what you do and what you believe in as a way to help us, help our trainers, help our coaches, and help our athletes ultimately be more prepared to get to your level.
Sure.
So thank you for joining. Let's just start right in it. You got 60 seconds. You're talking to somebody, in an elevator or at a quick pass by. What are you telling them about your hitting philosophy?
Right. I mean, I think, when you're talking about the college level, and, the first thing that starts is you recruit kids with a good swing. I mean, we're definitely working mechanically. We're working swing things when they get to college, but you're recruiting good mechanical hitters, kids that have physical tools. And the thing that we will instill as soon as you get here is the greatest way for me to make a young man better is to get him to understand approach and really timing. And really what we're trying to do is to get a group of 16, 18, 20 hitters to understand that there are a million kids out there with really, really pretty, very expensive, paid for swings that can't hit. And the best hitters don't always have the best swings. They have the best timing. They're on time the most. They understand how to be on time the most often. They understand that it's a battle, and that they adjust pitch by pitch, situation by situation. So when we talk about that, I will tell you 80-90% of our talks are about being on time, understanding how to be on time, understanding who you are as a hitter, and understanding what you need to do, to improve those things, how to drill work, and to really practice something that's going to help you in a game, not not so much, get away from mechanics. Let's get more into being on time. Don't get me wrong. We've got guys that have, there's always guys are always working with deficiencies mechanically within their swing, and we're consistently working that as well. But I will tell, guy after guy after guy that we are talking about how to be on time as often as we can. And those guys are your most productive offensive players. And that's really what becomes in college. We talk so little. We use the word hitting so little, and we talk about offense because that's what college coaches are trying to do is score runs. So you're trying to create the best offensive player you can. And I think, that is something that is really, really foreign to kids. They are so concerned with, where's my elbow, where my bat drag, and I got this, and the reality is they're most of them just never on time. They're in between time all the time, pitch by pitch. So
Yeah.
that's it. That's what we are getting guys in here, and we are trying to instill as soon as they get here.
Yeah. So obviously, you guys have won a ton of games. You're one of the
Yep.
winningest programs in the NCAA Division III history, and to win games, like where does offense fit into that equation?
Well, I mean, I will tell you if you have if you're trying to build a program and you're a head coach, I will tell you that it is a scenario for us that if you're not building your team around pitching and defense, the clock is ticking.
Yep.
I mean, we've had really, really good teams, and pitching and defense has been the backbone of it. But offense, you have to find a balance there of guys that can help you score runs and guys that can help you stop them from scoring runs. So, for us, when you start talking about offense, it starts day one. It starts about understanding what we need to do individually in order to become the best team offense that we can. And different guys have a different value, right? You've got guys that are 5'8" that can run and can bunt, and they're on base guys, and they are gonna they have to cause chaos on the bases. They have to be aggressive, and they have to be smart on the bases, but we're trying to push the envelope. And then you've got guys in the middle of the order that hit the ball to the park, and each of them has an offensive value. And what we're trying to do is figure out what their offensive value is and to maximize it, and then make adjustments. You got big guys that have never stolen a base in their high school career, and you have to get them to understand that they are going to come in and that they are going to learn how to run base. We spend 20 minutes every day base running. I think that's one of the areas that is the most improvable area in college sports. You can get a kid to become a really good base runner.
Right.
You got little guys that are going to get bigger and stronger, and their singles, have got to turn into doubles, and then you've got bigger guys that maybe need to understand a two-strike approach and how to cut down on strikeouts. So there are things that we're going to instill as an individual and an overlying theme as a group. And the first thing that we are doing everything we can to do is to cut down on strikeouts, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's just become accepted. It's become okay in college sports, it's become okay in high school sports because it's okay in the professional game. And the kids see guys strike out like it's no big deal, and they walk back to the dugout. And the first thing we have to understand, or we try to instill them, that was a battle, and you lost that battle, and that's not okay, right? That's got to be pain. There's got to be there's got to be a sense of pain there
Remorse,
that I lost, and I cannot allow that to happen. Now the goal is to not be the guy that strikes out the least. But when you get to that moment, we have to change our approach, and we have to understand that a three hopper to the third baseman can turn into a ball thrown down the line and into a run. Where if we just wave at a slider or take strike three and walk back like I'll just get him next time because I watch the big leaguers do that, then we're going to struggle. So that's the first thing that happens when they walk in the door.
Right. So let's talk about that. I love how you talked about, you spend little time talking about hitting and a lot of time talking about offense.
Yeah.
You've been coaching for a long time. What's the evolution of offense been? What's the evolution of hitting been? How have you seen that shift or develop or change, or what's going on with that right now?
Well, I mean, I think that the hot topic or the thing in the last 10 years is obviously everybody wants to use the word launch angle and hit the nobody wants a ball on the ground. And that's been the same thing since Babe Ruth played, since Lou Gehrig played. They didn't want the ball hit the ball on the ground. They were trying to hit the baseball on a line and in the air and drive in runs and create offense that way. Ground balls and at the highest level become outs. So I think that is the first thing that young guys here, young hitting coaches here that are they're those guys are doing all the work in the trenches of putting together a kid with a really nice swing, and they're doing a good job of making them understand that that we want to hit the baseball on a line, and we want to hit the baseball in the air. That's where damage comes from. But I don't think the kids always hear that. They just think I've got to hit the ball in the air, and I've got to drive the ball, and I've got to hit fly balls. Ground balls are the devil, and you get into those types of things, and we get in a really bad habit. So I think that's been the one evolution that I've seen in the last 10 to 15 years is kids come in and there's a big push to lift the baseball, which tends to create a bit of a longer swing. Pitchers are throwing harder than ever. Pitchers are pitching at the top half of the zone, and we're swinging up, and we have a problem. And we've got balls that are, we're striking out much more because the ball's over our back. So I think when you understand that our goal still needs to be to hit a hard line drive that the shortstop or second baseman can catch, and it's gonna run to the wall. That's our goal every day of getting guys to back into that mindset that that's what they're trying to do on every single swing. Home runs and extra bases are going to come from there.
Yep.
And if we miss on top of the ball, it's a hard hit one hop line drive through the infield. Nobody's trying to tell anybody to swing down in the ball and hit a four hopper to the shortstop. So there's a disconnect there, I think, in some of the young kids.
Right.
And again, it goes back to they just see big leaguers being okay to strike out. And I think when we can start to change those thoughts for them, that they can make a jump.
Yep. So I heard you talk a little bit about that. If we could focus on being the best offensive player that we can individually, then that rolls into our team goals, and that rolls into what we want to do as a team. You led us down the first path, which was reducing strikeouts.
Yeah.
What else? What are some other kind of individual goals for me as a hitter for you? What are some individual goals that I need to focus on?
Well, we say that, hey, okay, right off the bat, we sit down with our guys, we say, hey, we've got, as an offense, we've got three different goals. We're trying to lead the country in wins. We are trying to lead the country in runs scored, and we're trying to lead the country in OPS, right? We've got to get on base. We've got to drive guys in. That is just no two ways about it. The best offensive in the country, when you go back and you're doing this and I'm an analytics, I'm a numbers guy, and without trying to instill too much of that into the individual, we have to keep those things in mind as a coach, that those things are what help us score the most amount of runs. And what that becomes for me, the best offenses every year walk and slug. They really do. You want to score runs, you have to. And I'm not saying, hey, we've got to go 3-2 and you're taking a bunch of pitches. But what that leads into is we have to instill a two-strike approach, because when we've got a really good two-strike approach, we will foul off tough pitches. We will take pitches that are out of the zone, and in theory, then we'll walk more. And that's where offense tends to come from. But at the same time, you can't have a bunch of guys that hit singles and try to not strike out. You don't score. You've got to hit the ball in the gap. You got to hit the ball over the fence as well. So you're trying to create a team that, from top to bottom, from 1 through 18, that does those things. So then you break it down into drill work, into day in and day out work. And how do I do those things? You don't tell a kid, hey, you need to walk more. We have to create a scenario through drill work, through the mental approach of getting them to understand how we walk.
Okay.
So we've got guys that, that swing. We got a young guy right now that is a sophomore, was like fifth or sixth in the country in hits last year. Never strikes out, but he also never walks, because when he swings, he puts the ball in play, right? So you understand that that's his approach and that's his game. So how do we fix that young man? And what do we try to instill into that young man without taking away his aggressiveness, without taking away what makes him good?
Right.
But to try to make him possibly maybe a little bit more selective, to instill a two-strike approach, so that when he does get to two strikes, he's confident in taking a 1-1 or a 2-1 pitch that's on the black and say,
Right.
nope, that is not the pitch I want to put in play. I do no damage with that pitch. I'm okay with that pitch going to 2-2 because I'm confident in my two-strike approach. So that in theory, the idea is that you're trying to be more selective in that 2-0, 2-1, 1-0 count to do damage. Now, when you get to two strikes, we've got to change our thought
We'll
process
come
and the
back to
battle
that.
chain. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to
Yep.
come back to that because that's I've heard you speak on that. I've shared with many coaches. I had the privilege of sitting next to you, sitting next to your office, listening to you talk to hitters, watching your practices, and these little conversations of approach and weighing the risk versus reward of what do I do in certain situations. I just love it. But I want to come back just real quick on you talked about striking out less,
Yeah.
valuing putting the ball in play. You talked about walking, you talked about slugging. Those are some of the ingredients that I would say that you look for in a successful offense. You did talk a little bit about chaos on the bases. I did hear you talk a little bit about bunting. Maybe
Yeah.
just talk about those 2 points. How do those are those ingredients as well, and how do those fit your offense?
So right now, I will tell you, our guys are, the guys are, doing work on their own, and we have a series of stations that they do, kind of in the off season, and we bunt every single day. I say it all the time. Our kid that runs a 6'5", that is 5'8", and he's not fooling anybody in the world when he bunts, but. Our 4-hole hitter, Evan Avola is, 6'2" left-handed hitter that hits the ball to the park and pulls the ball. They play in the outfield when he comes up. When he can become a guy that can bunt for a hit, and I'm not talking about bunting to move a guy up. I'm talking about if the third baseman is playing in left field, that he's going to be able to push bunt the ball and in finding himself 4 or 5 bunt hits a season. That's you're taking your average from 350 to 400 now with just those 5 hits. But the other thing it is going to do is if every guy is a threat to bunt 1 through 9, then the corners have to play in. It just evolves into a better offense. So we do it every day. Guys have to learn to bunt. Guys have to learn to bunt for a hit. And I don't care, like I said, if you're 5'7" or 6'5", those guys all have to do it. So the threat of a bunt is even there. And if they're going to play back, we're going to take those opportunities. So that has to happen. And then we talk about the base running stuff. We base run every single day for 20 minutes, from the smallest detail of our jump, how we're reading pitchers, what we're doing against different guys, what our plan is. We've got we've incorporated some of the vaulting stuff that has become so much more popular in the last, 5 to 10 years that guys have started doing at all levels. But what the reason we're implementing all these things, because each team, our job as a coach, my job as a coach is to look and say, where's our advantage to be taken? Where's our advantage here? If we've got a kid on first that runs a 6'5" and the pitcher's 1-5 to the plate, well, we're just stealing. We're just going to turn right and run, and they're not going to throw us out. But what's going to happen when the guy is on the mound and he's a 1.2, 1.3 to the plate, the pitcher is, and we got a guy in the first that's just 7 flat, 7-2 runner. That guy still has to be able to run. We still have to have a plan for how is that guy going to move up. Working on the dirt ball reads, delayed steal, all of the offensive things we do. The thing I take in the most pride in the stuff that we do. We play. There's a couple teams we play. There's a team up in Wisconsin that he tells me all the time, their coach up there, he said that they actually have a practice that they call, I don't know what they call it, but basically they're preparing for us. They're preparing for Webster baseball because of all of the different things that we'll do. And it's not just, it's all there and in place so that if there's a team and they've got a deficiency, there's something that we can take advantage of. We have to be prepared to take advantage of it on the bases as well. So they literally have a practice that is designed for all of the nonsense. I think they call it nonsense or chaos or shenanigans or something like that. But it's exactly what I want. I want people to be uncomfortable when they play us. And the only way to do that is to be prepared and work on it and practice it and to take, to take pride in how you run the bases and to be prepared, because the difference of winning and losing a championship, and you guys all know this, how many times as a bunt player, Dave Roberts, with the Red Sox, when he stole second base, like I tell our guys, that won the World Series for the Red Sox, that, against Mariano Rivera, the Cubs won the World Series in 2016 on, Albert Almora tagged up from first to second on a fly ball to right center. That won the World Series for the Chicago Cubs. And those are moments that you can't replicate. You have to be prepared for the moment, and you have to practice it and work on it, because that is the difference between winning and losing so often.
Yeah. Well, I want to just recap that. I hope everybody listening, just enjoyed that. I mean, the ingredients that are needed, striking out less, walking more, have some slug potential, be able to create chaos, taking the extra base, being able to, make them believe that you can bunt so that it keeps the angles of the field more available to you. I think that's a great recipe there. And thank you so much for being willing to share that. Let's go into the actual at bats, because this is where, I just get, I become kind of a boy fan here of, just listening to you talk about, how the at bat can change based on, who you are as a hitter, what count you're in, what situation you're in. That changes pitch to pitch. I hear you harp on them about having a plan, having a focus. Start there and then work us towards this mindset. I think you said you lost the battle. Like, if you strike out, you lost the battle. It's a mindset. Talk to us about having a plan, having a mindset. What do you want to see from your guys?
Well, yeah, I mean, we say that every pitch, every at bat is a war, right? And every pitch changes. It's a new battle within every pitch. It changes the war. If I'm up there and I come up with first and second with 2 outs, and I'm the 3-hole hitter, I've got a plan on the first pitch, whatever that plan is, probably aggressive. They don't have anywhere to put me. First pitch is a slider that I swing at in the dirt, and it kicks away from the catcher. And now they're second and third, and I'm an all conference power hitting 3-hole hitter. Well, you better understand that the plan is now different. They've got somewhere to put you. You're still the same hitter that you are. And pitch by pitch, those things change. 0-1 to 1-0 is a huge difference. And if you have the same approach, pitch after pitch after pitch, you're just not going to be a great hitter. That's just all there is to it. You have to understand that every pitch changes exactly what's going to happen and what you should be looking for. We want to anticipate. We want to be looking for pitches in every scenario, and we will break it down into 3 different areas. Right? You've got offensive or positive counts. You got, and what I mean by those are counts when you can be with 90% certainty you're getting a certain pitch in a certain spot. And we talk about certain those counts can be 0-0, but certainly 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 3-1. Those are offensive, early timing, early fastball that I'm sitting on a pitch counts. And then we've got 2 strike counts. You got 0-2, 1-2, 2-2, sometimes 3-2 counts, and we've got to have a different approach for that. But there are counts in the middle where you can't, with great mathematical certainty, know what you're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
So we really break it down to 3 different types of counts for our guys. We've got offensive, we've got 2 strike counts, and then we've got neutral counts. And then what's our plan on those neutral counts? So right off the bat, if we tell our guys, if you don't know what's coming, if it is 0-0, if it is 1-1, if it's 2-1, those types of counts, and it's not a perfect science, because 2-2 can be like that, 3-2 can be like that.
Mm-hmm.
We have to understand, in order to have our barrel in the zone for the amount of time that we want to have, that we've got to do 2 things. One, in those counts, our approach has to be to the opposite field gap. And really it's to the opposite field, a head high line drive through the opposite infielder. And that has to be our thought. We don't have to guide the ball there, but we have to see, I almost talk about that movie with Kevin Costner, that the one where he throws the perfect game. I can't think of the name of the movie. But anyway, he when he gets to the moment when he says, hey, and he can zone everything out, and he says, clear the mechanism. And he's just got a tunnel vision of something. And I tell our guys, that is what you got to see. You got to have a tunnel vision to that side of the field. And you have to have a plan to go there. And we want to then be on time, right? Our timing thought is we want to be on time in those instances for the pitcher's fastest pitch. If it's 90 miles an hour, we want to be on time for his fastest pitch on the outer black of the plate, right? That's going to allow that pitch to get as deep as we can. It is going to allow a later barrel to hit the baseball up the middle and the other way. It doesn't mean we can't pull it. But it also gives us a chance if it's not that pitch, if we get a slider, we get a changeup, that now we can finish that swing and still be on time or have an opportunity to be on time for that pitch that's 10 miles an hour slower. You can't be on time for fastball in there, right? If I'm not sure what's coming and I'm setting my timing up to be on time for a fastball in the inner third, if he throws you anything that's not a fastball, you have no chance. So that's our thought process. We have to have that. Now, 0-0, 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 3-1, we're in an offensive count. Earlier timing. We're on time. Fastball only. We have to have complete conviction. Our guys are going to watch this and laugh because I use the word conviction all the time. You have to have 100% certainty that you're getting that pitch in that count, because if you don't get it, you just swing through it or you take it. But what we don't want to be is in between timings. Be on time for nothing in our offensive count. We want to be on time for our pitch in that count. So that's when we're doing some damage. That's when the hands can get out in front of the plate, the barrel can get out in front of the plate. We don't have to yank the ball. We're still got an up the middle approach, but that's where doubles and home runs come from in those opportunities. So we want to make sure we have conviction that we're getting that pitch in that count. Now you get into two strikes, and now it's like, okay, what's our two-strike approach? So, those are things pitch by pitch. You're going from offensive count to neutral count to two-strike count. You might go from an offensive to a neutral. Now, listen, you're 0-0, you're offensive. You're 0-1, you're kind of neutral. 1-1, neutral. 2-1, neutral. 3-1. I'm going back to sitting on 90 miles an hour, and I'm gonna do damage on that pitch. So you have to be able to stop, take a breath, reset yourself, and have a plan of what you're gonna see in that moment. So if you're not doing these things, to me, you can have the prettiest swing in the world. It's not going to matter. So you're doing everything you can to be able to control the moment, control your breath, and to be able to make those adjustments on the fly.
Yeah. Wow. That was incredible, Bill. That's I just kept taking notes, so I felt bad because we video this and we put it out on YouTube, and I want to engage my eyes, but I'm over here writing down notes and I think at the beginning when you said I'm not so everybody that we want has to have good patterns, good mechanics. We want to bring them into the college setting with those patterns and mechanics, but then we're going to focus on timing. You use the word timing. Yep. In my opinion, I think coaches hear that word timing and they immediately go to moves in the swing. They go to the load, they go to foot down stride, whatever. They go to contact points. I think when I hear when you use the word timing, you're matching that up with a pitch by pitch approach based on what we're expecting. Am I saying that fairly?
For sure. There's no question about it. We'll do drill work where we will put, this all goes back. You're talking about, how did we learn hitting and where does it go back to? There's an old blast system hitting approach, and it's from LSU back in the day. I think his name was Jim Schwanke or something like this. And he used to have this blast system approach, and he would talk about early timing and late timing and that type of stuff. And this is really what it kind of derives from. And but you've got early timing, and to me, if that has to be different, if I'm a guy that throws 90, miles an hour, 93 miles an hour, my foot's got to be down at a certain time so my hands can get out front, my barrel can get out front. Now, if that same guy, the next pitcher you face is 83, your foot can't be down at the same time. You'll have to stop and wait. You have to match the timing of the pitcher so that we stay in rhythm, that we have the ability to adjust pitch to pitch. But it just really evolves into what am I expecting? How fast are coming? What kind of work am I doing in the on deck circle to match pitcher's timing so that I have the ability when it's 93 that my foot is down, my barrel's out front, my hands are out front, and I can then do damage at that point. Right. But God bless America. There are times when that you're not getting a fastball. I tell our lefties all the time, if you're a big left-handed hitter and they bring a lefty in to face you, they're not bringing him in to throw four-seam fastballs. But just understand that you may not get a slider every pitch, but you're getting two or three of them. So in that approach, in that moment, we talk about, hey, listen, we're going to go and we're going to sit on a certain pitch. And you again, the Bobby Ojeda. I remember thinking, he had faced the Cubs, back in the 80s, and they bring him in out of the pen, a left-handed pitcher, and he'd kind of be low arm angle, and he'd throw a bunch of sliders at Leon Durham, and he would swing and miss. I'm like, God bless it. I knew when I was 9, you were getting 3 sliders, Leon. Like, God dang it, swing it. What are we doing? And so, those moments, you understand that you might be a guy that is getting pitched differently. There's no doubt our 4-hole hitter is going to get pitched different than our 9-hole hitter. And you have to understand those things. They're going to attack you if you're a runner, and your timing has to be dictated on those things, what you might get.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, let's dive into each of those count categories just a little bit more. And you did a great overview of each, but a couple things. Number one, so let's go to the even counts, those neutral counts that you're talking about. I loved the tunnel vision focus, the head high line drive and the opposite gap. How do you, let's kind of ask, how do you train that? Yeah. So now let's take that, you're in this neutral count bucket, and now what does that look like in practice? What does that look like in BP? How do you train that?
Okay, so I will say this, and make no mistake, all I've done is steal these things from really good coaches in my life. But I've had the opportunity to be around some good guys, and we put together a drill set that we've stole from people. So when we're talking about how do we drill or how do we train these things, one of the first things we understand is we have to understand that the plate is 17 inches wide, but the zone is probably 22 inches wide. So one of the first things that we'll do is we'll train guys on that pitch that's the fastest pitch away. Is we actually take a towel and we put the towel down, on the outside of the plate, not even on the plate, off the plate. We ask our guy that's front tossing or the machine, we're going to shoot the ball over the towel. So we're shooting a pitch that's a ball or two away, and we have to make our guys understand that that's a strike in college baseball. It's a strike in the, it was been a strike in the big leagues until they put those, computers in. But we have to understand that. So that affects where we stand on the plate. We have to have plate coverage for those things. So we call that our perfect pitch drill. And we're throwing a fastball that is 2, 3, 4 inches off the plate. And we have to figure out how to put a swing on that to hit it hard. So that becomes our kind of ball that's deep in the plate, that's gotten deep. We have to hit that ball hard. I'm a left-handed hitter. For me, I am trying to hit that pitch as hard as I can over the top of the shortstop's head. On a pitch that is a perfect pitch away. So that is a drill that we will utilize to make guys understand that that's what we're looking for in that moment. We do a lot of drill work on angled BP. This is not anything that has been, new by any means, but we do a lot of angled BP work. We do a lot of slider work. And when you get into the mechanics of things, to me, that's the best way to create a good bat path. When we've got a ball coming in from the opposite arm, if I'm lefty and it's a right-hander that's kind of offset, and I'm going to shoot that baseball back to left center, or for a righty to right center, I've got to stay in that pitch. I've got to let it get deep. So there's where you're starting to create your swing patterns, your good bat paths, your good angle of attacks through the zone. So that's part of the way that we do it. And then the next thing we do is our batting practice scenario. We never just swing. We stole this. I was very, very fortunate enough to spend about a week with Ed Matthew, who's been at Northern Illinois, and he's the head coach at North Central now again, and they were in the World Series, and I was their kind of liaison, getting them to the field, and I watched them practice every day, and it changed how we did batting practice. Every single swing that we take now, we have a direction in which we're hitting the baseball. You don't just hit, you're just not gap to gap. It's not just like get in there. Every swing, and we'll have a round that we call the sprinkler. And it's like first, it's a 5-pitch round. First pitch is opposite field. Next pitch is middle. Next pitch is pull side gap. Next pitch is back to middle. Next pitch is opposite field. So barrel control is key. We will when we talk about training and we talk about working with the hitter, the first thing we have to get a young man to do is understand where his barrel is to control his barrel, and then we try to swing with that same barrel control with violence. And so it doesn't go the opposite. We don't teach swing as hard as we can with violence and then try to, we've got to make a young man understand of where his barrel is at all times. And then we take that same swing as violently as we can. And so that's part of the way that we are going to train guys to understand this is what we're looking for. And I understand, make no mistake, we haven't really gotten to the 2-strike stuff yet, but there are areas that can attack you. If you're ready for the fastest pitch on the outer black on a neutral count, if you get 90 on your thumbs, it's probably tough,
It's gonna
but
be
but that's not, you're but again, you're not at your last you don't have the last bullet in the chamber at that point.
right.
Now you go to a 2-strike approach, and you maybe it just makes it 1 strike, but I am looking for something that is probably inner third to outer black, and I can do damage if I'm in, and then even if I get something that spins or a little bit slower, I still have the opportunity for my barrel to be in those zones. And obviously you're trying to create a swing where you've got balance and you've got a little bit of sway and timing in there that, we're getting into mechanics now. And it's part of I don't really like guys that don't stride. I like guys that have a stride, because the stride creates rhythm, and a stride creates time. You have to sometimes find a beat in there to let that breaking ball get to the zone. So now you're trying to create those moments as well, and those small increments that allow that pitch to get to where you want it to.
So now let's move to positive counts.
Yes.
Let's go to positive counts. Let's talk about so this is, we're juiced up, we're amped up, we're throwing our eggs in the basket that we're going to see the fastball. One, again, how do you train this? How do you get the mindset right for this count, and what do you want to see?
About 5 or 8 years ago, we'd keep a chart, right? And the first thing I had to do was give the kids the numbers. We kept a chart on every pitch that we saw on every count. And over the course of a couple of years, everybody always thinks, okay, 1-0 or 2-0, 3-0, 3-1 counts. Those are fastball counts. You sit in dead red counts, whatever. The first thing we had to make them understand is that 1-0 is almost the exact same as 3-1. 1-0 in college baseball at our level gets a fastball about 91% of the times. 3-1 gets it about 92 or actually, sometimes less, but it is closer to, that same fastball percentage is there at 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 3-1. It's all within a few percentage points of each other. So we have to understand, I think people underestimate the damage that you could do on a 1-0 count, especially if you got a breaking ball 0-0. You can just about sell the farm that you're getting a fastball 1-0, depending on if they have nowhere to put you. So getting them to understand that these are very, very aggressive counts. And we want to make sure. So we'll do drill work. We'll even put cones down outside the machine, maybe 5 feet from the machine, to understand, hey, my foot's got to be down when the ball has just left the pitcher's hand, so that I have time for my hands to get out front and do damage. We're still thinking middle third of the field and everything we're doing. But we are sitting, and we have 100% conviction that I'm getting a fastball in that moment. If they throw us a breaking ball, we should swing through it. We don't want to slow our bat down and hit a 4-hopper to the shortstop, because we slowed our bat down. We are sold out on that pitch in that count. But the key is that you can't just only use the pull side of the field, because now you've cut off your angle of being able to attack and control the plate coverage at that point in time. So we still have to stay in the middle third. If it's middle in, we're on time. We can pull the baseball. If it's middle out, we can drive it to the middle of the field, the opposite gap. If it's on the blacks of the plate, you don't want to make an out on those pitches. You don't want to, but if they're gonna throw it over the white, we are gonna get a great swing off at that point in time, and we're gonna try to hit a low head high line drive that is gonna go through the center field fence, not over. And you go from there.
So do you value the take position in this count? Like, is this if I'm juiced up for that fastball and guy, he just kind of backwards me and gets me on a little breaking ball out? I mean, do we want to see guys be able to control the take in this position too?
For sure. I mean, I think we talk about, understanding, having good takes, taking takes with balance, but we don't want to make an out in a positive count. We don't want to put
Right.
really what I'm trying to do is to get these guys to instill that we do not want to slow our swing down. If they throw us a 1-0 changeup, which is a great pitch, I mean, we throw them, everybody's throwing them, no doubt, and we can't recognize it early enough that and it's in the zone. We want to swing as if it's a fastball and swing through it. And now we're 1-1, and we just readjust in our mindset at that point in time.
Yeah.
But what we don't want to do is slow the bat head down and put weak contact in play at that point in time. So, trying to get guys to understand that is a big thing. And I'll say this, all of this stuff that we're talking about, positive neutral counts, the key to the whole thing is you have to have confidence in your 2-strike approach, because if you're not confident in that, if you're not a confident 2-strike hitter, you're going to be more apt to want to put something in play before you get to two strikes. And now you're back to talking about a not very productive offensive player, because now they're not doing damage in the counts that they should be doing damage in, because they're afraid of getting to two strikes.
Right.
So that is something that, we, as you get into this, it's one of the things we train and that we practice all the time. So
Yeah, one of the things you said there, that when I see a guy and he commits to something on a 1-0 and swings through it because he got off speed pitch or breaking ball, I don't want to see that guy get frustrated. I don't want to see
no,
that guy get upset, or because if I do see that, then he's not understanding what his plan was,
no
right?
question.
And so I think that's also important, is that you lost that kind of one pitch battle, tip your cap, and then go to the next battle, which is now a 1-1 count or whatever it may be.
For sure. And the whole key to that to me is you have to be able to reset, and you have to, I have to now, how did I look on that? Right. We had a young man that played for us for 6 years, a catcher for us. And he was a very aggressive young man. He jumped on first pitch fastballs, and, but he was a pull hook. That was his swing path. Right. And he'd do a lot of damage, but if he missed, he would pull the ball foul a lot. Well, now he's 0-1, or he's 1-1 after that bullet that he hit, up into the grill house down the right field line at our stadium. And the ability to stop and understand, hey, they're probably not throwing me another fastball. I just hit it as hard as I could. And now to kind of lay in the weeds on something, on a changeup or a slider at that point in time, that's what makes you a great hitter. The guys that cannot stop and change gears in the moment, because now with these new rules, you got 12 seconds. I had to get a coach, a sign from the third base coach. The pitch clock's going. I've got to get in and say, now I'm back to a neutral count. Now, hey, this is a really good time for him to dump a slider. And the guys that understand that, that's when you get really good. But the guy that's going to be just set on that fastball again, you're not getting it. We even go into depth about who's calling the pitches. There's just a difference between a head coach or a pitching coach calling the game against you, or a 20-year-old catcher. And sometimes it gets a little bit more predictable when the catcher is calling the game. And you can kind of start to see patterns. We keep a pattern sheet in the dugout for the entire game, a history of what we're seeing, because those things, sometimes it's like the catcher's calling the game and every 0-1 pitch is a breaking ball. Well,
Yeah.
I almost hope he throws a first pitch strike, because now I've got to plan 0-1. And so, you're trying to put together an approach that changes, and you have the ability to change and control your breath and your heart rate, so you don't get worked up when they dump a hanging breaking ball and you were not going to swing. You decided you're not swinging at that pitch.
Is there anything to kind of finish up the positive count bucket? Is there anything drill wise that changes? Do you bring in some new drills or anything different there?
Yeah, I do. I mean, you have to train velocity, right? So we use machines consistently, but you can't just do angled stuff. You can't just do slider stuff. We use the Marv balls now, the softer balls, because suddenly everybody's hands hurt. It turned, I don't know how that we got through this, Brett, as youngsters, but we were okay. Our hands must have been stronger. But now we've got the soft baseballs, but we train velocity, right? You got to turn the machine up. We cut the distance down. So in those moments when we're committed to fastball timing, our foot is down, we get the bat head out, and we have to train for, we're seeing Division III. I mean, we're seeing 90 miles an hour every weekend. And it's just, it used to be if you threw 90, you were going to get drafted. Now it's out there everywhere. So you have to train those things. You have to train fastballs to the opposite gap, but your bat head is out in front and into the middle of the field. You have to train. You have to pull the ball. We'll do drill work where you pull the ball middle in. You can't just get tied up. I mean, all the damage is, a lot of great damage is done to the pull side of the field. So we'll utilize velocity training, certainly in those moments as well.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we spent a lot of time kind of in the neutral bucket and in the positive bucket, or the advantage bucket. I heard you say something a little bit ago, like, if you're not confident in your two strike ability, if you're not confident in your two strike approach, it's going to leak into the other accounts.
For sure.
And so let's talk about two strikes. What do you want to see from your guys? How do you help them build confidence in that bucket?
I will say the first thing that our kids, when we get in, we have a different two strike approach than just maybe not. Maybe people just aren't saying it. I mean, I listened to a hitting coach from South Carolina about 15 years ago, and it changed how we did things. Everybody was, hey, we got to work off the fastball and adjust. We're doing those things. We have a different approach. We tend to stride later, right? That's the first thing we want to do. We want to cut the swing down to some. Again, we're in a negative count. We have to give something up. We've lost the advantage in the war, so we've got to give something up. We can't take the same home run to hit a towering pull side home run. That swing cannot be the same swing. So we get a little bit shorter, we get a little bit more compact. Our stride gets later, and we say this: if the kid is throwing 90, our pitcher's throwing 90 miles an hour, we want to be on time for his slowest pitch. All right. So if his fastest pitch means that our foot is down, 5 feet after ball is out of his hand, now we're going to get our foot down maybe 10 feet later, right? 10 feet later. So maybe our front foot lands, stride foot lands when that pitch is, and it's different for everybody. So let's say halfway, 40 feet from the plate. We're a little bit more controlled. We're later. We're on time for his slowest pitch. Our tunnel vision is only seeing the opposite field. We are only looking to hit the baseball to the opposite side of the field. And we've gotten a little bit later with everything. We're letting the ball travel. So it gives us two abilities to, really, if it's a fastball, that thing should be hit hard or should be hit to the opposite side of the field. If you get something with spin, something that is his slowest pitch, if he gives you his slowest pitch and we're on time for it, we have the ability to still hit the baseball hard up the middle, even to the pull side on that pitch. We don't want to think pull there because now you're dealing with sliders and things like this, like going under your bat. We still want to stay inside out, but we are going to be on time for his slowest pitch. We're not guessing it. That's not what I'm saying. We're not sitting on his slider, but if everything's later, everything's more compact. If we get fastball, foot's down late, throw the hands, shoot the baseball to the opposite side. If it's his slowest pitch, foot is down, we're on time to be able to get the hands a little bit further out front, hit the baseball up the middle with a changeup or a slider. Now, again, let's talk about the problem. The problem is fastball in, right?
Yeah, right.
That's why people throw 1-2 fastballs in. Right? I'm on time to hit the baseball the other way, and for his slider. Again, I tell our guys, look, if our plan is just fastball and you have no chance with everything, I'm just amazed, and I continue to tell our guys, I'm just amazed that they're okay swinging at a 1-2 slider that hits the plate and going back to the dugout. Like, that's not embarrassing to them. But if they happen to take a fastball on the black on their hands, like, they just go, oh my God, I could hit that one a mile. They're just so frustrated. So to change their mindset, to get them to be okay, what we found is by going later, by anticipating the slowest pitch, is now we spit on the slider. That high school, bad college breaking ball that lands on the plate that you see people swinging all day long. Mm-hmm. We tend to take that more. We're seeing it later. We're reading the spin. We're on time to let it travel. We lay off it. If it's fastball away, we shoot the baseball the other way. If it's fastball in, you got to fight it off to get to a pitch that you're actually on time for. You just got to go to battle and you got to hope that you fight that thing off. But that's our two-strike approach, and we train it, right. We will get in the cage, and you'll have coaches throwing. That's where we got to get involved. My shoulder and Coach Hammond's shoulder throwing, breaking balls from 35 feet and mixing fastballs in. We really get into almost like a cage game with them. Hey, you're in a two-strike approach. We mix it up on them. We make sure that if they get a fastball and they pull it, we stop the drill. If you're pulling a fastball, it'll happen in the game too. We're in a 1-2 count, and again, this same young man that pulled the ball so much to a left-handed hitter for us for years, he gets into that count. He yanks a fastball fouled on the first base line. I'm like, you're on time for nothing right now. You have no chance at anything that's slower. So we have to understand where our foul balls, where our barrel needs to be, where the bat needs to be in certain counts. And when you can do that, those are the guys that get to be really, really positive offensive players, because those are the guys that are not striking out, but they're not striking out because they got a good two-strike approach. Not guys that aren't striking out because they're putting pitches in play to the shortstop and making it out. So you got guys that are controlling their strikeout numbers based on the two-strike approach, and then you got guys that are walking because they got to a 3-2 count or a 2-2 count. They laid off that pitch, and now they walk because the guy didn't throw something competitive in the zone in the next one. Now you've battled, you got through a
Yep.
whole battle of an account. Maybe you had an offensive swing, you had a neutral swing in there, you had a two-strike swing, you did everything you're supposed to. You didn't get the pitch in the middle of the plate that you could put in play, but you ended up working a walk based on your the entirety of the at bat.
Mm-hmm.
Those are really good players. Those
Yeah.
are the really good offensive players.
I'm gonna
So
I'm gonna
that's
I'm gonna
what
come
we're
back to
getting at.
that. That's great.
Yeah,
I'm gonna come back to that those separators and how those guys understand those situations. But let's just hit a couple more drills. So I heard you talk a little bit about, you guys do some short box work,
yep.
mixing in breaking balls, fastballs. I love the idea that if you pull the fastball, you got to pause or stop or
Yep.
reset. What are some other drills that help guys, have this mindset or have these patterns that'll help them with two strikes?
For sure. I think you've got it's not anything new. We'll work the three plate drill where
Yep.
you got front tosser machine and you're moving up and you're moving back. So you're understanding different timings of the fastball. And what I'm trying to do, that you've got to understand that your foot can't be down for the fastball from 30 feet as it is from 50 feet. It's coming. You've got more time to
Yep.
wait. So you've got to understand when my load starts, when my trigger starts, so my foot is down so that I'm on time, for each pitch. So I think, when you start doing these things, you're going to have you're going to see good outcomes when you're changing timing up and you're making kids change their timing and the rhythm of their swing. You're going to see improvement. We do tee work. I think there's two really good tee drills that we utilize a ton. One, I still think one of the best things to do to create a good hitter is just long tee, long tunnel where they can see the ball travel. Your best hitters, your guys that control the barrel, can set the baseball up, because now you've taken all the variables out, right? You've got a fastball down the middle on their front foot. They hit it down, they hit it to the back of the cage with some backspin, with even a little tail to the opposite field gap. Those guys that can do that 8 out of 10 times,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to find to be some of your best hitters. So you can work that. And what we're trying to do is get the kids to understand where their barrel needs to be at all time. And then we do high tee work
High
more than
tee.
anything. High tee, I like it. I think really, when you're talking about a swing path, you're trying to match. All you're trying to do is match up the pitch coming from the pitcher. You got a 6'6" pitcher throwing to the bottom of the zone. The ball's coming downhill. We've got to go down and we've got to get a little bit more of an uphill attack angle on the pitch. Where if it's up in the zone, I've got to have a flatter swing, a more direct swing path through that pitch. The strikeouts and the fly balls come from not having a flat enough swing on pitches at the top of the zone. So we will train those things as well. That's part of our drill process as well. But I think when you start to understand that, you get that shorter swing path, inside out, control the barrel swing. I think that's really, really positive. You'll see positive things come of your tee work from there as well. So,
Yeah.
we train off the sliders every single day. Every day, the machines are up throwing sliders. Tracy Smith talked about, when he was in Indiana, he spoke at the ABCA convention about 15 years ago. And it was almost comical. He'd get up there and he would talk about, well, what do you guys do for this? And he'd be like, well, and he had Kyle Schwarber and Sam Travis. They were awfully good. He's like, hey, we get them on the slider machine and they stay inside the ball and they drive to the opposite field. And then somebody else raised their hand. What do you do for this? And he's like, well, we hit off the slider machine, and it really does, because again, if you think about it, you have to create an inside out swing with a good bat path. You got to let the thing travel. You got to not hit the baseball on the ground. And if you get good at that, I don't have anybody that's not really good off that isn't really good in the game most times than not. I have really good, the guys they're terrible on that machine. Eventually, their deficiencies show up in the game. So I think you can utilize that, and it's hard. We want to make it as difficult as possible. We want to train. Some of these freshmen get in there and we put that slider on, big league slider, and they're like, "What the heck is this thing?" Because it's an unrealistic pitch. It really is. That those hack attacks or whatever, they can. God bless it. We don't see sliders like that. I don't, but so we train that way too. And I think that creates a really good bat path if we're staying inside it and driving it to the opposite field.
I want to get your we're wrapping up here. I want to get your opinions on some of the intangibles and, give our high school guys some, sneak peeks into the things that you look for, the things that you see. One of the comments that I talk about often is, I had an All-American hitter when I was at Wash U, and one of the most things that stood out about them is they always talked about their swing. They always had conversations. They always understood what was going on. It wasn't, hey, coach, what did I do wrong? Hey, coach, did I have this? Or, hey, it was always, this is what I felt, coach. This is what I did. There was just conversation about their swing, and they just could totally make adjustments on the fly, pitch to pitch. I heard you kind of talk a little bit about that guy that was early on that 2-strike count, and being able to understand what's going on and how that's going to help you for the rest of the at bat. I feel like hitters need to be able to talk about it.
There is no doubt. Hitters are funny. You want them to play the other side of the field, but we've got a young man right now who's conference player of the year, and I used to laugh at him because he'd go out to right field and he'd be practicing his swing in between pitches. I mean, Barry Bonds used to do the same thing. They're out there and they're going to do their best to catch the fly ball, but I mean, he's constantly thinking about hitting. He's constantly working on his swing, and he loves to hit, and he wants to be great. He is great. So those guys, that talk about this, our guys do a really good job of discussing, hey, this is what I'm seeing. He's got this, the ball's sinking. We've got to stay inside it. You got to do this, you got to do that. There's a part of it that is confidence too. We used to have a guy, he's going to our Hall of Fame this year, named Tom Hankey. He was great about things with us because he would come in and their guy would be dealing. He'd strike the first two guys out. Tom would come and hit a double. And it was almost like the rest of the team, like, no, this guy ain't that good. Tom just ripped a double off him like he was just nothing. And Tom would, express that confidence, like, hey, we got, God, I just, he looked at him to hit it in the air. I'd hit it out of the park. But, and it just calmed the team down, So I think when those guys get going and they can share information, they can understand, how to attack certain guys and what we need to do. Some guys are just a whatever. Right? They're going to be tough. You got it in a tough day coming, and we've got to have a plan. And if they don't match up with your plan, you're probably going to have a real tough at bat there. But at some point in time, you got to have a plan. And if they make a mistake within your plan, then you got to do damage. They're just not going to give you a ton of opportunities. So I think sometimes we talk about that stuff, or the guys will discuss that stuff. The best hitters hit. I mean, I don't know anybody that I don't think I've ever coached anybody that was really a professional hitter, at least at the college level, that didn't just hit every day, 5, 6, 7 days a week, or in the cage hitting. There's no substitute for seeing the ball come at you and figuring out how to square it up within your own swing. And some of that's just figuring out your own swing. We can talk about all these things and tell, drill and whatnot, and guys kind of figure things out on their own. The other thing that we have not touched upon is one of the first things we'll talk about with our guys as well. And this gets into, is the batter's box. Coach Hammond's our first base coach, who was the all-time home run leader at Quincy. He kind of said something to our guys one day. He's like, I want you to stand in that batter's box as if there was no plate. Now, you've got the batter's box, the confinement of the batter's box, but let's say there was no plate. And you had, at the time, we had a kid named Matt Mulhern, who was, the national pitcher of the year and was a, low 90s right-handed, high spin rate guy. Where would you stand? Would you stand at the front of the box, or would you get as far away from him as possible? And, because I got guys that, guys come in and they're so dead set on, I only stand at the back of the box. I only stand here. If he was throwing fastballs at the top of the zone on the inner black, would you stand at the front of the box with your toes on the plate, or would you move back and get off the plate? So the ability to move around in the box, pitcher to pitcher, almost pitch to pitch. I watched something with Pete Rose about it. He would talk about moving around in the box as well. And that is guys get stubborn. Oh, I stand here. Well, what's funny is when Matt Mulhern used to pitch for us, the kid that came in after him was a kid named Jordan Smeevil, who threw 82 miles an hour and 3 million changeups. And if you stood at the same part of the box for both pitchers, you were literally giving them an advantage. So we've got to understand that, hey, that guy's 82, 83, sinking it, bunch of changeups. We're going to be in the very front of the box. We were going to take that away. Guy doesn't, let lefty that is away. We are going to get in the front of the box and get your toes on the plate. You have to have that ability to move around and see the pitcher and understand what gives me the best opportunity. That guy's throwing hard. You give yourself as much time as possible. That guy's throwing a bunch of breaking balls. You have to have the willingness and not be stubborn to move around. There is so many you can find yourself an extra two. You talk about all this timing stuff. I can change my timing. I can move up a foot and a half in the box.
Yeah.
And sure, that fastball went from, if I like it at 85, I can take a guy that was 82 and turn it into 85 by moving up in the box, or vice versa by moving back in the box. So
Yeah.
those are things they have to understand as well.
Yeah. Excuse me. And that, I think it kind of comes to like the final point that I want to sort of hit on. And I heard you say it earlier, like you need to train hard. Like you need to train hard things. I think guys, they do get stubborn. They get frustrated easily. They get, they want the cookie pitch, right? They want to barrel a cookie pitch, and they don't want to work on. I mean, you even talked about the very first drill you talked about was throwing off the plate. Throwing off the plate, and I wrote down, I was like, we struggle to help young hitters train with adversity and train the impossible, so that when you're in the game, it feels more possible. Like that's a characteristic that I think we need to continue to develop the young guys with.
There is when guys get to college, what the college coaches tend to struggle with is, okay, we're trying to instill our hitting philosophy or approach or make some changes. And then you got a young man who has spent, I don't know, I did the same thing. My kids played travel sports. We've invested tens of thousands of dollars into that swing, into that approach. And that hitting coach, while has done an awesome job, because I've not recruited that kid. Sometimes hitting coaches or guys, coming up, like you said, they're getting that. I mean, front tossing, middle third of the plate. God, you walk out of that cage there. A lot of times a hitting coach, the hitting lesson guy is there he's making money. He wants you to feel good. He wants you to come back and be comfortable. And he wants to, God, I killed it today. I was crushing the ball. My exit velo was this. He's front tossing you in the middle over the center of the plate. Well, yeah, now they get to college and we're starting to train them to be unsuccessful, to be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And getting them to change or be willing to get away from some of the things that they've done. And make no mistake, we're not fighting it because that player we've recruited, because we like what we see and they've done such a great job. But sometimes there's an unwillingness, a bit of a stubbornness to make some of those adjustments. And the guys that A, get strong fast, and B, be able to make those adjustments the soonest, they crack the lineup the first, soonest, more times than not. So there is you need to train things that are uncomfortable. I just saw a guy I really like on the West Coast. We're recruiting one of his guys on there out of Arizona, and he's got some of the BP balls, and when he shoots into the machine, he likes the ones that actually get some chunks taken out of them. And I'm like, well, because it starts to make some movement, and he starts training some takes and things like that. And I'm like, that's interesting. I mean, we do. I get a bad ball, we throw it away. Webster, of all the things, we've got a ton of baseballs, and we've got the nicest baseballs there are out there. You come out here, you got white baseballs a lot, but when you start getting into those things, he actually talked about liking some of those things to create movement. I like the machines for that. I don't want the machine to throw it right in the same spot every time. I want him to throw it out of the zone from time to time, so that you're actually training what you're going to have happen in the game to you.
Yeah. It takes a mindset. It takes a mindset to do that. And if you stand in my facility and watch guys and girls in a cage, if it's not a clean pitch, it's a lot of eye rolling or a lot of stepping out of the box or a lot of shaking the hands. I mean, it is a mindset to understand that you're training to be uncomfortable. You're not training to get artificial confidence. It's something I firmly believe in.
There's no doubt about it. And I do think. I think there's a place for artificial confidence, though.
Sure,
there's a really good book. I just bought it again. I think my dad has it right now. But I talked about giving it to one of our guys. But you guys are all Cardinals fans here. I'm a Cubs fan. But the book, 3 Nights in August. If you've not read it, go read it. It's as good a book as there is. But there's a moment in there, I think Scott Rowland is talking about the difference between a double and a foul ball is confidence. All of us you talk about strikeouts and things like this. Good hitters tend not to strike out because when they get a 1-0 fastball, they hit in the gap. They don't foul it off the screen.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think there are moments, especially in batting practice, sometimes we're struggling, and I'm like, hey, let's go middle in, pull side, let's drive the ball, game's getting going. Hey, let's feel good about ourselves. There's a difference. There's a time and a place for that for sure. Again, we want our guys to feel good, but in the middle of November, when you're going and doing work and trying to work on your game, you have to train for what you're going to see at the highest level to get out of your comfort zone. but I do think there is a time and a place for confidence in some artificial stuff. Sometimes you're patting. I go by, I pat a guy in the butt. Hey, look great today, and I will walk by him, and as soon as he's out of earshot range, I'll turn to coach. Like, that kid's struggling right now. He's seeing they're throwing marbles at him. Some guys
Sure.
they're throwing beach balls up there. Like, when you're struggling, they look like they're throwing a golf ball at you, and it's cutting and sinking on you. And they're throwing it on the black. That's the difference of the confidence. But the good hitters that put the work in, they tend to be confident more often. They don't tend to go into those
Yeah.
funks because of the work they've put in, because it goes back to the training that they've done. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, man, we could keep going forever. We could keep going forever.
How long we've been on for. This has been great.
Yeah, man, I loved it. I loved every minute of it. We'll have to do it again. I have so many notes on, what I'd love to get more into, like, what are you looking for in guys, at the high school level? What's recruiting looking like these days? Those are future topics that I hope maybe, Bill, we can get together again sometime and talk about.
Anytime, all kinds of good stuff out there. Like I say, I got this kind of little PowerPoint up on the TV screen in my office, and we didn't even really, started to kind of touch base on some of them, and some of them we didn't get a chance to, but yeah, for any time, we'd love it. I love talking about hitting. I do, I do think there's so much to it, and there's so, as you get older and you start to understand hitting. Sometimes the kids right now are so mechanics and swing oriented, and we're trying to kind of get them to understand, greatness comes from understanding this too. You got to have the swing too. God, make no mistake. Most of the time, the guys that play swing the hardest and hit the ball the farthest, but the guys that the great ones get this part of it as well.
Yeah. Well, man, I know you're a humble dude. We've known each other for a long time, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. You are a plethora of knowledge. You're willing to always share. You're willing to always help. You never guard everything at your chest. You're always, like you said, we all steal from each other, and we hopefully help the people that are coming behind us. And you've always been that for me. You've been a great sounding board for me, and I've learned so much from you. And I'm really excited that people are going to get to hear this and learn a little bit more about all the hard work that you're putting in over at Webster.
I appreciate it. We got good players too. Gosh, good players make you an awfully good coach, and we've had good players for a long time now. And we're evolving. We're trying to keep up with some of the stuff that's out there now while keeping a good, do simple better. And that's, those teams tend to win the most games, but you're teaching the game to kids. It's a tough gig right now. These kids are watching baseball and seeing highlights and in 5-second increments on Twitter, and they think, well, that's how I play, and they're just not watching the game from start to finish, and so now you're getting into these moments where you're starting to teach the game a lot more, which is fun. It is fun. Sometimes frustrating, but it's stuff that you thought they should know when they're 8 or 9 years old, and but it re-energizes you to get back out there and teach as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, Bill. Thank you so much.
Yep.
And everybody, thank you for listening to this Hardball Talks, and we look forward to the next one.